Hello, my name is Ian Uhrich. This is my Comm 212 project, our final project for the class. We had many options for this class for what we could do for our final project, and I had carefully kind of thought about a few, and the one I really wanted to go with would have been the dinner and first holiday with the in-laws, with the uncle and aunt and stuff like that. Fred over here didn't like that idea. Fred was chilling up in the tree. He didn't like that idea, and so we decided to go with taking a girl on the first date. There is many different steps to this. I'm going to try and keep these steps related to the comm, the communications portion of it, just because I don't want to get off topic. So first I'm going to go through the coming together process of building a relationship, simply because it kind of gives a little foundation to the situation. So your first step of building the relationship is going to be your initiation. You're initiating the conversation, your first impression with the person. As we all know, first impressions are crucial. They last forever, like you all say. We've watched several videos in class, learned about different tactics, and it really shows that first impressions really have a direct result on the end result of what happens in the situation. So first impressions are crucial. That's going to be your initiating, your first 3 seconds. The next stage is going to be the experimenting. That's where you go into a little bit more detail about what's going on. You share your name, what you do, maybe your major, depending on your situation. And that is kind of the next 10-15 seconds part of it. Now there's kind of a gap, and after that is the intensifying stage. Excuse me. Intensifying is where you're sharing information that you previously would have held. In my mind, there's probably a couple sub stages in between those last two, and the experimenting stage definitely could last a lot longer than the 10-15 seconds. Who knows? But after the intensifying is going to be the integrating. Integrating is where you're going to see your relationships and your personalities bonding and blending together into one personality. After that is going to be your bonding. That's going to be your showing of public affection to each other, most notably as a wedding. That is the very easiest example of that, simply because that's what a point of a wedding is, showing your public affection for one another. So taking a girl for the situation on a first date is going to land right in between the experimenting and the intensifying stage, may even land closer to the intensifying stage. So step one is going to be picking the appropriate location. So again, I could go into more details of why picking an appropriate location is important. I'm going to try and stick to the communication aspects. A good location for a first date would be a place that's okay lit. You want to be able to see those nonverbal communication, those nonverbal cues that the other person is giving you. You also want it to be quiet enough to verbally communicate with each other effectively and well enough to understand what they're saying. You got to think about just not what you want. You got to think about what the other person is wanting. So your step two is going to be your biggest and most important stage. Is going to last the longest. It's your conversation. The initiating the conversation is going to be your verbal communication skills. You don't want it to be a basic conversation. You don't want it to be like, how's the weather today? Stuff like that. You want it to have more deep meaning to it. You want to make the conversation salient. Salient is what attracts that person to your conversation, what catches their eye, right? You just paid attention to me snapping my finger. That's salience. It's the different cues. You can have nonverbal salience, you can have many different options, but you want it to catch their eye, make them pay attention to you. Some of your nonverbal cues, your kinesics, are the most important. That's your eye contact. You want to make sure you're paying attention. You want to show that to them. You want to look into their eye. Now, you don't want to be creepy. You don't want to be like staring into their eyes, staring deep into their soul or anything like that. But you want to show that you're listening to them and you're not looking elsewhere. You're focusing on them. The facial expressions. You don't want to seem upset. You don't want to seem pissed off. You want to seem happy, right? And then your posture. Good posture shows everything, man. You got to show comfortable, but at the same time relaxed. And now I'm going to go through the active listening. There's 5 main steps into the active listening stage. The first is going to be receiving the information. You have to hear that information and try and work to understand it. You also got to see how they were giving that to you. So that ties into your nonverbal and verbal information. Attending, you have to devote your attention to that person. The next step is going to be understanding. That's going to be interpreting the information. That's probably your most important stage. And then responding. You want to follow up with them. You want to show them that you are listening. That's how people know if you're listening, is if you follow up or if someone does not. That is really, it shows you who we're listening and not wanting and waiting for them to get done talking. That kind of ties in the I, it, I, thou topic. I, it, I, thou being in person waiting for you to get done talking so you can build on that conversation versus me waiting for you to get done talking so I can talk about what I want to talk about, right? So that really ties that in. The last step is going to be recalling. That's making that information stick in your mind. That personally is where I struggle the most. The step 3 is going to be know where the situation is going, know where your date is going. Now that all has to do with perception. You want to know how they are perceiving you, right? You can talk and talk and talk, but if they're not perceiving you well, it's not going to go well. And now dates are going to have all sorts of negative and positive emotions. That's just how it goes. And hopefully you have more positive than negative emotions. Some negative emotions might be you're scared. It happens. You're nervous. But the biggest thing is, if you're having negative emotions, work through them. There's many different ways you can work through your negative emotions, and probably the most important one is reappraisal. You want to take that emotion that you're going through, reappraise it, get a different view on it, and change how you're feeling about that situation. Step 4 is going to be your wrapping it up. You're towards the end of your date, you're all done eating, whatever it may be. You want to be polite. You don't want to be pushy. Now keep in mind, relationships, they require both to choose to have this relationship. That is required to have what is called a relationship. You both have to choose and want to be in it. So that is going to be my 4 main steps onto going on a first date and trying to tie it all together with communication. I'm going to kind of wrap it up here with 5 key tips that I would give. The first key tip I would give is find appropriate location. You want to have that location very easy to communicate and understand and be able to see their nonverbal cues also. 2 is active listening. You want that person to know you're hearing them. You want them to know you're focused on them. Number 3 is build on conversation. That really shows that you're active listening. If you're not building on those conversations, you're going more towards those I-it conversations. Number 4, awkward silence is bad. Don't have awkward silence at all. If you can avoid awkward silence, the better. We all know what happens, and we all try to avoid it, but sometimes it does. Just kind of get through it. And number 5 is, guys, hold the door and buy flowers. He likes flowers too. See you later.